don't we go ahead and get the meeting started? First item on the agenda is town manager's discussion of recently adopted policies. There were 3 policy memos that everybody should have gotten.
So good evening, everyone. Mark Waltz, town manager. As you know, the select board over the past year has passed a number of policies. Their intent was pretty much to get a common understanding of everyone, of expectations and responsibilities. They appreciate everyone's work. They know that being, as evidenced by you guys being here tonight for a significant meeting, they know there's a lot of hard work that's done, but also they wanted to make sure that committees, or as much as possible, were fully staffed, because there's a reason that certain numbers are picked for the committees. There's people from different perspectives, different input, and if you're not there, you can't do it. So as you know, for the most recent policy, they put out the draft back in, I think it was April, looking for comments and things. They got, I think, about 8 letters. They looked at all those comments. They got the letter that came from all of you. That actually went to the attorney to look at, because you guys have raised some legal concerns in it too.
I have this if anyone wants it.
To summarize the response to the legal concern, that because your enabling ordinance was less restrictive than the policy, they said, or he said, that he didn't see a conflict and it would be okay to follow, in essence, follow both things. So when everything was said and done, they made some changes. They raised the threshold some for the number of absences. It had been 25%, it went up to 1,000 things. But then they passed it at that meeting. What we've done is we've got probably, it's like a 10-minute training that now when someone new is appointed to a board or committee, we're going to sit down with them and go through. Happy to spend a few minutes and do that quickly with you guys, or if you don't want that full thing and you just want me to answer specific questions, I can do that. So your choice.
Yes, I'd rather specific questions unless you guys.
Yeah.
All right. And we started talking about it a little bit before we started, but 2 things. One is, in Mark Corey has clarified. I asked him if workshops count, and the answer is no.
Policies is meetings, so whereas the recording policy does cover workshops.
So if someone isn't here for a workshop, it doesn't count one way or the other, because it's not I'll call it not a meeting that we take minutes at.
That's why I showed up tonight, because I was concerned.
Well, I really appreciate that, Larry. I thought it was a feint and whatever, but anyway. My only, I'll come back to kind of what I was talking about earlier. I guess if I had my druthers, I would ask them if they would please reconsider to only count it where it's unexcused, not counting it and from a standpoint of absenteeism and so forth. Whereas excused, I just have a hard time, counting that towards somebody being away, because as you know, these guys go through a lot of paperwork. They submit. I mean, every time Scott goes and he's in the middle of Boston Harbor, he's still already provided us with a whole list of his input for that coming week's planning board. So I would we may not move the needle, but I would ask them to reconsider that.
That was something that they got out of your earlier comments that was considered, and that's part of the reason they went from the 25% to the 1/3, is because they still ultimately feel like it's important to have the members at the meeting, but to make
so do these members.
But to make the threshold not so hard. That request, I don't know that they're going to ask to have it reintroduced as an agenda item, just because they did consider that when
And that's fine. They can just say no.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you, Dawn, that there's a difference between saying I can't make it and being excused versus AWOL.
Right.
Yep.
And I agree.
Personally, I just think it's harsh for everything we ask these people to do. That's, again, my opinion. Anything else?
The difference between us and the select board is we're not paid. They are.
Minimally.
I know, but they're still paid. We're not. We're doing this absolutely, on our own and at our own free will. And All of that.
And that's certainly appreciated,
Yeah.
but the thought is if you take on an obligation, we need to meet the
All right,
obligation.
so I guess my other question would be, what prompted this? Because it feels kind of punitive, like, did something happen that I'm not
I
aware
think
of?
it's a series of things happened.
'Cause I've been on this planning board for what, 4 or 5 years?
One of the things that pushed this most, or parts of this most recently, was the legislation for the railroad tracks, the lower road. So there were letters of support that were requested for the legislation to change it to be a rail or a trail rather than rail. The select board for the past 3 years has strongly felt that they wanted that trail to be as multimodal as possible. Now, it might not mean that you could have horses, ATVs, snowmobiles, people walking in every section, but there may be possibilities for it where there's double tracks and things. So they wrote a letter in support of the legislation, but they were very careful to point out in there that they want the track to be as multimodal as possible. The Energy Committee that has a charge of writing the climate action plan, they decided that they would take a position on this trail, and they were going to send a letter to the state that said, we want it to be basically limited to bikes and pedestrians. And the select boards, that does no good, because now we've got Topsham's position watered down because it's coming from, 2 different things. So they said, but they really couldn't tell the Energy Committee, hey, please stay within your charge and don't send this letter because we don't want Topsham's position watered down, because there were no standards. So their attempt at these policies was to just have some ground rules that everyone's on the same page. So that was it.
What does that have to do with attendance?
Well, as you know, that's one of the things that was done. They've had a number of things over the year that come up. They've had complaints about some people missing large percentages of meetings on certain committees. That got their attention. They said, no, it's probably better that we had common understandings with all our committees, and so that we've got some rules that we can all live by.
I'll just go on the record and say that I don't feel that that is what has happened with the planning board. And, we've gotten swept into that. And maybe they should have dealt with those individual committees before they.
But you can't do with anyone without a rule.
Right, but a blanket, everybody's gonna do this now. We have had no issues at all.
Was there a consideration though between ad hoc committees, which is what, CPIC is an ad hoc committee, Energy Committee is an ad hoc committee. Planning Board is not an ad hoc committee. We are a legislative type body set forth by the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
So was there any consideration given to saying, oh, yeah, we have some concern about what's happening with the ad hoc committees, but not the legislative type bodies? So I guess
I think
that's a question. And I don't think there's been any time that the planning board has had anything before that we've not had a quorum. I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've always had a quorum, and quite often the whole board.
I would say the place that was taken into consideration, the difference between the ad hoc and the standing committees, was the fact that when I was just talking about the public position part, there's a very clear delineation that if it's something that's part of your duties, like obviously you guys are making statements on the zoning ordinance, or we support it, we don't, or you should do this or that.
Well, actually, I think we're prohibited from doing anything outside of the planning board.
Right.
By the ordinance. Like, we cannot go to, if there's a proposal coming before us, we are not allowed to go out and visit that proposal.
So in essence, this isn't putting in greater restriction than what you already have.
Well, it is with regard to
Absenteeism.
the absenteeism.
And that one, I think it's going to be a philosophical difference. The select board would like to have as many members. If we have a 7-member board, they'd like to get 7 members there, as many meetings as possible.
Okay, have we exhausted that one?
I guess so.
All right, thanks. Thank you. I guess, I don't know which order. Do you want a committee project partnership policy or meeting record recording policy?
I think the committee project partnership policy, you guys can probably disregard, because you aren't coming up with new initiatives that take extra staff time or money, or that's what that's directed at. And the meeting recording policy, I can probably summarize real quickly, is that basically, because of the fact people like to watch things on YouTube to learn about town events, they like to record all your stuff, workshops and meetings.
Okay.
And then the last caveat, which I don't think you guys really get into issues with, except some other committees that sometimes do by accident, is just to remind everyone that an email that goes to everyone that everyone responds to ends up being same as a meeting. So just try to hold comments on, scheduling is fine, but substantive comments, try to hold them for the meeting. I've never heard that you guys have not had issues with that, but that's the only thing I'd point out in the training on that policy.
I did send, I'll own up to it, I did
This
send.
guy
an email.
did, right?
I learned from my
I
mistake.
think we've beaten that one into the ground, Scott. I think you're okay.
I don't think there's anything in the email that was, egregious, but I did say.
No, the only note I made on both of them is, and maybe it's on here somewhere, but I didn't see a date for either one of them.
The meeting policy was like last October, I think. roughly.
No, that one has a date.
I'm sorry, the recording policy was like last
No, I'm
October.
sorry,
The
yeah.
meeting policy was June 19th.
I guess it didn't, but anyway, just a suggestion, at least on these documents, I don't see any dates when they became effective. All right, so the battery storage, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So we had a firm called Mission Clean Energy that approached us last October and said they'd been talks with the Bisson Farm about putting a grid scale battery storage facility there on the farm. The attractiveness of that site is the fact that it's next to one of the former Maine Yankee lines, so it has a lot of capacity that it can take. And they said they're going to be pursuing permitting for that, and they wanted to know if it's something they could do in Topsham. We told them last October that under our current zoning code and based on Tom's take on things, it couldn't be done. But didn't mean we're not willing to continue to talk to them. The next step would be to come to the select board and see if they want us to engage in a process to see if we could find a way to make it happen. At the time I asked them how much they thought this would be worth, they told me about $300 million at our current tax rate. If you have a facility with 300 million, would have annual taxes theoretically over 3 million a year out of it. So it could be a significant benefit to the town. One of the things I've suggested is we have a large part of the community that wants a community center. We're trying to find a way to fund it without a significant tax increase. This could be a way, could also be a way to help reduce taxes, could be a way to help do both. So it has attractiveness for that reason. We heard from them again in April, so they were ready to come to the select board and took a little bit to find their flight schedules and things, but we got a meeting set up. It's actually July 3rd. And they came and did their presentation for the facility. One of the concerns all along, and if you Google this at all, you may have seen, like in California, they've had some of these catch fire. So that's one of the things that needs to be addressed. They had their fire contracted person at the meeting from NY, former New York firefighter. He explained he was involved in writing the NFPA code that addresses the fire stuff. He explained a lot of things that they're doing. He claims that it's extremely remote, that you'll have future fires like some of the ones on the older facilities, and he went through some of the reasons and stuff. But it's something on our radar, is we definitely need to make sure to address fire things if this were to go ahead. So they did their presentation that night, and the select board said, this is worth us investigating more. Would like staff to work to prepare the changes that would be needed for zoning, so that this could be voted on by town or the town meeting, see if the town wants this. And also asked us to talk to them about financial things, but kind of the first step is the zoning part. Obviously, you guys are the key to the zoning part. So we did some research and we talked to the town attorney on how we could proceed with this if we wanted to. We also looked at Durham. At the same time they were talking to Topsham, they were also investigating a site in Durham. They told us at the meeting on July 3rd that it sounds like maybe for some other permit, maybe wetlands or something, Durham is not their favored site as much as Topsham is. They also said if they could get permits for both sites, they'd probably proceed with both. The other thing they said is that while they said they might keep it, it sounds like they're more likely to, I'm going to colloquially call it permit flip. So they would get all the permits, and they'd actually sell the facility to someone else to run it. So another thing we'd want to keep in mind is making sure that whatever we do is going to be carried through to future owners and enforceable against them, whether they be tax agreements or permitting agreements and stuff. But we met with Phil Saucier, the town attorney, and talked to him how, because we noticed that the way Durham had proceeded was with contract zoning. And to look at how we could accommodate this. What Durham did is they passed it as a use, but they required contract zoning as part of that use. So it gives the flexibility that you can negotiate for, maybe decommissioning or something. We want to make sure that something extra or that maybe we don't want to apply to every project, or we want to have abilities to do particular things for this one. Phil said the good thing about contract zoning is that you have more flexibility with it. But he also emphasized that if you do contract zoning, it still has to meet the comprehensive plan. So you can't do something completely out of, and it still has to be allowable use in the zone and stuff. So it gives us more flexibility, and that way we wouldn't necessarily have to put battery storage facilities throughout the entire zone. We'd have more control over specifically why it's there. And he said if we didn't want to do contract zoning, then the other thing we could do is just make a use and put regulations in the zoning code or outside of the zoning code. As you know, our assistant town manager is former deputy fire chief in Brunswick. He's talked to some folks at the fire marshal's office. And Tom also has connections because Tom's on the state code that passes all the ordinances. The expectation is that Maine probably isn't going to pass the NFPA chapter on battery storage facilities for another year. So no matter what we do, we probably want to, as part of the package of legislation to enable this, we pass that for Topsham on our own, so that we've got the extra standards for the facilities and things. So there's a lot of work yet to be done as far as drafting stuff, but because a lot of this is going to need to go in front of you guys, we wanted to get a sense from you up front. Are you interested in us trying to include contract zoning in this, or would you rather we didn't? Because we won't spend the money going down that road if we don't want contract zoning. I'll turn it over to Skye for 1 second to give her thought on contract zoning or why we might want it or not, and then I'll wrap up with why we'd like to try to at least proceed with this to the next stage.
Yeah, I think Mark's done a really good job of talking about the battery energy storage. I'll just add that if you were to, authorize us to move forward with looking at contract zoning, it also has considerations outside of this battery energy storage. There's been interest in a denser, more affordable, affordable housing development in the R2 zone, which we cannot make work. There's very few tools for us to allow greater density in that zone. It would be a full-on zoning amendment. If we were to have contract zoning passed, that could be an option where we would, as the town, allow them to vote that this particular project would be allowed to have a greater density. It could have kind of create a pressure release on the recode. I know sometimes when we talk about it, there's concern that we'll go too stringent and that there will be no way for us to handle instances that come up without having to change. This could be a case where, if there's something, there could be okay, this one instance will be looked at differently. I also think that there is an argument, and I think that the handout that we gave you is something that was written up for Durham. I think in there it notes that it's a very democratic process, which I think is just important to consider. It still goes to the townspeople, it still goes to a town meeting vote. It just allows them to consider each item specifically. I think you guys may have brought something up like that similarly in a previous workshop where you said you like to hear when people come in with a specific project and you like to work with them. I think this could align with that, just for you to consider that it does have broader considerations outside of the battery energy storage and could be a good tool in Topsham to allow development in the way that seems to fit with our goals.
And I think the final piece I'll add is the day after, it wasn't maybe the exact day after, but shortly after the meeting on July 3rd, because the meeting was on July 4th, Andy Bisson reached out and said, can I talk to you? So he and his brother came in and he said, I just got to tell you how important this is to our farm to be able to do this battery storage facility. He said, the cost of my seed has gone from $2,000 a year to $25,000. The cost of power monthly has gone from $3,000 to $7,000. And he said, I want to be able to preserve that land. He said, one of the reasons when they approached me, they wanted to buy the land for the batteries, and he said, I told him they could only lease it for 20 years. He said, because I want to try to preserve that farm. A couple of years ago, when they were talking about closing the meat market, we had a lot of people contact the town office. What can we do to help the Bisson farm? In essence, if we can find a way to make battery storage happen, it's a way to help the Bisson farm. So that's why the select board felt strongly they wanted to at least prepare this so it could go to a town meeting vote, is to have a chance of trying to do that. So, happy to entertain any questions.
I have some thoughts, but any of you guys?
I mean, it seems like it's something we need to explore. I don't know much about it to begin with. When you say it's the $300 million facility, it makes the size. It's not a small facility. My brothers have always been the contract zoning was something that we didn't want to do.
It sort of has been, and that's the way I came in. as
Right,
well.
so I think if we want to think about going down that, we need to talk about it more than just here at this meeting, because
And that would be fine. There's no pressure to make this time.
Well, actually, some of the pressure may be off us because of course, the federal government, as some recent story, has pulled out a lot of the financial ability for this type of thing because it relates to solar and wind.
That's what I had expected. But when I asked them on July 3rd, I said, has what's happened in Washington changed things?
Yeah.
They said, believe it or not, one piece of the clean energy stuff that still has support is the battery storage stuff. I think because of the helping make the electric grid more reliable.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, you touched on it, but I would, just from a standpoint of the facility, right? I would be concerned about, and I think it comes back to the fire department and fire marshal and whoever else to basically be able to assure us that they have a way of containing the fires, because it's my understanding they can't put them out, right? And I could be wrong about that, right?
You are 100% correct.
So I need to have, I would think that not just me, but the entire town would need to have a better understanding of what does that mean, right? If you can't put out the fire, what does that mean within that facility? Is there a way to contain it and so forth? And you and I kind of talked about this before. The other is the discussion about, does it release any kind of plume or particulates or anything else to the air? And how far does that in fact get out? And what does that do to the landscape that's in any, whatever proximity to it, right? Because that location hits a lot of, I'll just say a lot of homes, right? Without going into any detail. So the fire thing, I think, is really important, right? And I know that you're talking about that. The other things that I would also want to, and it's more, and I don't even know how it's going to work. You know how we've been approving solar farms, and they have part of the processes that they agreed to put so much towards when they basically decommission them, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, I would assume that that is part of whatever agreement is made here, right?
Right.
But that all being said, on the one hand, like I said, I know Bath has used contract zones. I've heard mixed reviews on that. Brunswick has just started using contract zones, and as you mentioned, a couple other communities have. It does go down the path of kind of what a lot of people sort of call spot zoning and so forth, which everybody raised the roof when some of the apple orchard discussion happened, and it went through town meeting and did get approved, but it was almost like spot zoning that happened over there, right? So that's an area that we have sort of stayed away from, right? I guess one of the benefits that you mentioned about contract zoning is very specific to that project. So yes, it's within that particular zone, but it doesn't expand to everything in that zone. I guess the question could be, can you do it the way around if you're gonna just change the use to allow it? That you say it's only allowed to, not necessarily, pick the area, but one spot in that zone for whatever, right? So maybe there's a way to restrict it from just being a broad use throughout the
But
entire
there
zone,
probably would
right?
be, like,
And the use tables or whatever, but I almost think we would be better served going the conventional way, even though I'm kind of intrigued with evaluating whether or not the contract zoning would work. That's just my thought.
Because, you know, if we were to pursue the typical modifications of the use and the zoning, you know, the limitations and the requirements you put on something like this, given the fire danger, you know, at the selectmen meeting, the fire guy mentioned at least a 200-foot buffer. You know, that could be modified. Clearly, there would be a stipulation that it had to be just by default, or we can put it in there, but really they're just going to look at the high voltage lines. But that could be written in also. And to a degree, it may be spot zoning because there may only be a couple places in town that are large enough, close enough to that line that it could happen. Not saying we need to go that way, but I don't think if the town decides this is something the town wants to do, that doing it the traditional way is going to stop it.
And I'm
I think
not
you open
saying
up-
it would.
And I'm just saying with the contract zoning, I think we open up another can of worms at town meeting.
So why don't we, because I do think opening up contract zoning is establishing a precedent that maybe is not a good idea to do.
Yeah, I think you open up contract zoning for any zone that somebody wanted to do something in. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with the spot zoning versus contract zoning.
Yeah.
Contract zoning always has the appearance, at least in my history anyway, of almost like cronyism that, oh, I'm friends or I'm, you know, good business with this particular town people, whatever, as opposed to it just being controlled in the actual zoning ordinance. So it always, in my history, always seems to stick in people's craw to a certain extent. I would note too, that under the recode, that if, can't remember, are we on Article 6 tonight? But anyway.
We're not, no.
We're not.
We can't talk about Article 6.
But there is a provision in the new recode for which.
Major utility, right?
Utilities and
Tom saw the
services
same thing.
major,
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned
that is a conditional use in the R3.
Can I add something really quickly to that?
But it doesn't take battery storage.
I just wanna note that, Tom and I have discussed the utilities and services minor and major, and I would say both of us have, you know, some concerns about that, and when we get to Article 6, we'll
Yeah.
discuss those. I don't think that this should go, that would be if we are concerned about substantive changes outside of the center zones, adopting those as they are written would be a substantive change, and I
Right.
don't think that
I
will
wasn't gonna
happen.
get into the
Yeah, no,
substantive change.
That's fine. I know they're in there, and I know looking at it, you might see it. I just wanna note that, you know, we haven't gotten to Article 6
So
yet.
let's-
We'll discuss those. I
No,
don't think,
realize
yeah.
that,
Let's
yeah.
move off
Yeah.
Article 6 then.
Yeah.
I think, unless this board is disagreeing, why don't we maybe go down the conventional
Okay.
zoning approach, look at putting it into the use table, but as much as I hate footnotes or whatever, you know, notes or however makes sense to capture what we've talked about needs to be captured. Does that make sense to this board?
Yeah, I mean, you could almost just have, of course, depends on what's happening with recode and all that, but I mean, you could actually have as a separate warrant article, a town meeting to say, you know, we're gonna do this,
Right.
amend the zoning ordinance to provide for this.
Yeah, no,
Build
I
it
think it
all-
could run a parallel path. If it-
Mhm.
Yeah.
If the timeline fits, it's within the recode. If the timeline doesn't, then it can carry, which I think is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And as was said tonight, we can go either way and still find a way to make it happen. We just didn't want to spend money drafted one way if you'd rather have it the other. So tonight was just to get your
Alright,
preference.
so-
We
so
got the
my-
message.
My straw poll is, I guess, go
No
with
contract
conventional.
zone. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and I
all I
think
need.
actually, I just need to say, I think it makes more sense to put it as a separate warrant article for amending the code, because, I mean, we don't know if the recode is gonna pass at town meeting or not. So if you plug it in as part of the recode, and, you know, are people gonna say, wait a second, this is making too many changes?
Or maybe I'm gonna
Just
vote
kill the
against the
whole thing.
recode because I don't want a better storage. So, yeah, so you're right. We should probably have it separate from the recode.
Okay, so are we ready to move on?
I've got what I need. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome to stay.
Oh, I'll stay. I just won't You know, that's the.
Well, no, come
I
up
had
to
to,
the
I had
hot
to,
seat.
I had to
That's-
make him sit there,
that's
guys.
good. Actually, bring another chair up and you two guys both come up.
But we're good here.
All right,
You can hear us from, you can hear us from
Exactly.
here, right?
all right, so we're gonna try to plow through some of these. And I guess just a couple of things I'll note. The schedule's been slightly revised. We picked up and added the non-conforming conditional use in those tables. We put that ahead of the next time we get together on Article 2 and 8. And that was a result of the leadership meeting that we had where we were talking about what is the right sequence to try to approach all this.
Is
that on
your most recent schedule
Yes.
still?
Yes.
That's the most
Okay.
recent
Yep.
schedule. I'm just
Yep.
pointing it out.
Okay.
The other thing is the consultant wasn't available the first meeting. So that also sort of fit. So the next time we come back around to Articles 2 and 8, will be with the consultant.
Sorry that that's unproposed. It is confirmed now, September
September
25th. Well, she
25th.
has that in her calendar. We'll move back to form-based code.
So a few other things, they have updated, this is still in draft, but they are moving forward with an updated map. Part of that is because I couldn't read the two purples, right? But they've added different colors for a little bit more distinction, and they've also added some of the titles of the zoning on this. So if you don't have it,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't send that out because we weren't doing form-based code tonight. I realize now that you have that, I probably should have,
Yeah,
but
send it out in an email.
yes, I will send it out in an email. I mirrored the colors to the current zoning as close as I could. It was a little hard in some cases because I was doing this in a digital photo editing software. And I put titles on it to clarify for folks.
so anyway, I think you'll just find it very helpful and useful, so you'll have that. I've also, and I say Mr. Tom over here has put together, and this is primarily for I was thinking Article 2 and 8, it may come into our other meeting as well, but he's put together kind of a today, tomorrow scenario across the zones. And basically what he's showing is, here's what the current zoning is, the current uses are for those properties. And then here's what the resulting would be as part of the new code, right? So this
That'd be
is,
great to hear.
We'll do that for Articles 2 and 8.
right, so
Yep.
that really is a project for 2 and 8, but that's
Yep.
some really good stuff.
Well, you didn't do it for everything, Tom?
What's that?
You didn't do it for the whole town?
I did it for the center zone.
Well, but center zone, I won't say it's in center zone, but he does pick up Park Drive, Sand Hill, Topsham Fair Mall Road, Union Park and so forth. So it's not quite the center, right? But,
Yeah.
but anyway, thank you for doing this, Tom. And Danny Catlin is here. Dan has Chris Belanger, who you all know, is pulling together some scenarios for across the street. Basically, as you also probably know, he's coming before us shortly to look at what he's proposing over there under our current code, right? He's also though gonna look and say, how does that look under the new code, right? So we can kind of exercise the code to see that. So he's doing that for 99. He's also, while he's looking at it, he just started, I think, was it this week you started the apartment complex?
Yeah.
So he broke ground, I guess, this week for that. He's gonna, again, show us, here's today, here's tomorrow, even though he's totally under today, just so we know what that does. And looking at a couple of other things like that. Tom, bless his heart, also volunteered to take a look at a few of the, I'll call them, the projects that have been a little bit more controversial with this board where we haven't had a unanimous vote. And so it would be things like Aroma Joe's and different items like that, to just again say, here's under the current code and here's under the new code. So we both exercise the code and understand that and have evaluated it for when we do the full reviews of 2 and 8, right? So there's a lot trying to happen and to support our needs. Did I miss anything?
Not on my end.
Okay.
I think you covered it all.
What's that?
I think you covered it all.
All right,
It's
good.
comprehensive.
All right, so let's take a look at chapter 1, right? And some of this, I think you answered in one of these things I just read. The delegating, whether it needs to be in writing or not, I think you said the attorney still.
We're gonna work with the attorney on that one.
Okay. And
When,
so that,
yeah, when we discussed it, we're gonna need, Tom and I are gonna need to have a few back and forths with them just to figure out how that's supposed to be, but we'll get that so that it's, does what it's intended to do. And when you guys, review a final code, you'll get to see it, but I didn't think you really had big issues with that, and you're fine
No.
to delegate that to us to work with the attorney and
And
have a
yes,
final look at it. Yeah, okay,
that's,
great.
that's correct.
I think Josh is the only one who had a problem with delegation.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna bring that up, Larry.
As far as computation of time, I read the response. It really doesn't matter that much to me. I just know across the real estate industry, the difference between business days
And calendar days.
and calendar days always becomes, and I shouldn't say always, but a lot of times becomes an issue because everyone counts them differently. Everybody has a different set of calendar days for some reason. Some say that that's a real holiday and it's not a real holiday. So that's why I've always just tried to, and part of this, because most commercial contracts are calendar days.
Mhm.
And it just makes it so much easier when everybody knows what they're working with.
Absolutely.
Forget about whether it was a holiday or not, right? But whatever the attorneys want to do with that, I'll leave that up to them.
I would just say that this is just a definition to avoid that, so that if there's confusion, we can go back to the code and say this is where we define what a business day is. The reason that I don't think that we should remove it is there are a couple large parts of the ordinance that we are not changing, like the floodplain ordinance or the aquifer protection that reference business days. I would rather leave those as they are because I did not write those ordinances. I do not know exactly why that's in there. And I don't think it really comes up very often. I would rather leave us with a definition that provides what a business day is for those small few instances that there is a business day referenced. But most of the important ones that I looked through our current ordinance for this, and we don't currently have a definition of this, so I think this is an improvement that we've defined it. Most of the important ones about deadlines and such are calendar days, and I think moving forward, if we added anything in, we would do calendar days, but this is really just kind of a, cover ourselves in the instance that there isn't a reference. And also, maybe I would go through and try to catch them all, and I'd miss one, and then we wouldn't have a definition, and we'd have the exact issues. So to me, I don't see any harm in leaving a definition in there.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think you do have a problem about the close of business under sub C, though,
Okay,
as far as saying, what is the close of business?
I would assume that would be our
Is it-
posted
Depends
hours.
on the day of the week.
Is
Okay.
it,
Could be
is it,
posted
is
out.
it 5
Well,
o'clock, is it
yeah.
4:30?
Again,
I think.
what they end up doing, and yes, everybody puts in their contract, close of business, but then they put down 4:30, 5:30, 5 o'clock, 6:30, whatever.
Right, you're defining what the close of business is.
Because close of business does play into it,
All right,
because
we can work on having that
Yeah,
defined.
I mean, if you wanna say 5 o'clock prevailing time,
Yeah, we'd probably prefer 4:30, that's our close of business.
so,
Except on Fridays, it's 3.
Yeah, that's true, and today it was 6, so, yes, I will, I probably need to have a meeting with the attorney about some few little things, and I will bring that up to him.
so, what is it, 1.4. 1.40.2, and that little section B that is in blue. We have a new law about retroactivity. Does this line up with that new law? I just don't know.
That's, again, something wrong by the attorney.
Right, so,
And I will say, he's
and
reviewed
I
this.
hadn't noticed that before, but.
Yeah.
But that new law is fairly new too, so maybe it wouldn't. As far as 1403 and 1404. That's really why this is created, showing the before and after, because I'm not saying that this shouldn't be written this way, but to the extent it is written this way, basically says that if the use doesn't show up in the tomorrow code, when the new code is signed in as quote official, then that property becomes non-conforming, right? So that's important to understand what that's saying and how that impacts here, which is why this was generated. The other thing is that previously issued permits, another thing I asked for there, and again, I'm not saying this language is wrong or it has to be changed, but again, I think we need to understand that as well. And I've asked Mr. Catlin if he can look at his project that he just started and have Chris sort of lay out the timeline of what they went through, because I'm not sure how that would have necessarily happened if you follow this strictly, right? Where it basically says something to the effect at some point, it has to be done to the new regulation, right? So,
I think the key word too is diligently pursued. And when I had to come back for an extension under 140.3, I don't think you would have granted it to me.
so I think if we can understand that better, that would be good. I don't think we have to hold it up, but I do think that that's something that we at least need to understand. Anybody else have anything on chapter 1?
But Dan, you could end up with, because that's your 4 building
Right.
situation.
Well, and
So you could
again,
end up with 2 buildings looking one way and 2 looking a different way,
right,
technically.
right, exactly. Our front door faces the parking lot.
Yeah.
But why we came back is, if you remember, we had a fire code issue.
Right.
And then I was subject to, getting a decent appraisal, and we went for a time period where, I had 4 different appraisals on that property before I got one that was financeable.
Yeah.
So I guess my point would be is that there's some economic conditions when you have a permit that you have to come back and ask for an extension. And you wouldn't want to start over because you get $300,000 or $400,000 wrapped up in permitting and design. So you guys were always really good about giving me an extension and, letting me start the 2-year process again. But under this 140.3, I don't think you could give me that extension.
I can speak to that a little bit if it helps. I think you've gotten extensions under the site plan ordinance, which is chapter 175. A site plan is valid for 1 year from approval. You can get 1 6-month extension on that. Internally, the planning department has discussed if that timeline is potentially too short, but we have not had the opportunity to move forward with anything on that because we've been busy with recode. I will say also, I know historically you guys used to allow 2 years on that, and it did change to 1 year at some point, so I would be cautious around proposing changes to that because obviously at some point someone did change it for some reason. This is the zoning code, and if you had a site plan that was approved with zoning, that was our current ordinance as it is now, and that site plan ran out, whatever we write here actually wouldn't impact that, I don't think at all, unless we gave up, we'd have to very specifically write that in. This would also only apply 1 time when we are in the transitionary period of this ordinance. It wouldn't keep continuing to happen. So I do understand your point about the diligently pursued, and I understand that that language might be an issue, so we can look into that. But I will say that I think there is another aspect here that the site plan ordinance is what's governing a lot of those extensions.
So back to something you just said, we changed it from 2 to 1. I guess I don't recall, but that doesn't mean I remember everything. Can we go back and just look at that, see if we maybe should? I would argue, just given everything that we've witnessed over the last, I don't know how many years with interest rates and everything else, the bottom line is the economic climate changes the ability for developers to do some of the projects, right? And I do agree, 6 months seems too short.
That's just
Right,
the
and
extension.
I understand,
Okay.
right? But, maybe we should dust it off again.
I'm happy to consider that. I will say the effort of the recode has made it difficult to look at wholesale changes in other chapters. I'd like to do them at a later point. But I'm very reticent to say, yes, I can absolutely make a ton of changes in combination with this without this turning into multiple years. We can look at that, but I'd like to give that kind of caveat to this, that the larger this gets, the
So I shouldn't ask you for another one, but can you look at that one?
Yeah,
Yes.
and my point was that this talks about a building permit. So if you've just broken ground, you have a building permit for all 4 buildings?
Not yet.
Tom, why
Building
not?
permits aren't issued under, see,
I just-
maybe we should look at this, because there's no building permits issued under the zoning ordinance, it's separate. And it has its own timeline built into that. I think this is just a boilerplate,
No, I
anticipating maybe
understand.
permits are issued under some zoning ordinance, just, they're not here. So,
Because this makes it sound as if
yeah,
Dan doesn't diligently pursue the building permit, then the building 3 would come under the recode, if assuming that passes.
right, the building ordinance would have an issue with that,
And
so
yes,
this just.
I absolutely agree
Yeah.
that the language diligently pursued certainly needs to be checked. I think in Dan's case, site plan is what would govern things in this instance. And since you've broken ground, your site plan is not going to expire.
So
Because
it
you broke
could,
ground.
the language should read, permits issued under this ordinance, or something to that effect, because there's historic is issued
Yeah.
under this.
Mhm.
Someday we may do a zoning permit, I don't know, but, building permit's not there.
yeah, take out the word building.
We're, yeah,
Yeah,
We will look at that.
okay, thank you. I think though, anything else? All right,
Just for my records, I just like to check this since we had talked about, going through tonight and making sure that we're good with things. So from Article 1, you guys are good for me to look at delegation of authority with the attorney. You'll review that again when you get to a next draft. You don't
Yes.
really need to have a lot of
Yes.
input on that.
Right.
Computation of time, as Larry brought up, define close of business. Is that another instance where it's okay for me to speak to
It
the
is,
attorney, get
yeah.
that into a final draft?
Yep.
No one had any issues with abbreviations. I think that might have been semi a joke comment anyway, but I put it in for you guys.
So,
I said semi. And then the other comment that I had was the non-conforming, which we've discussed, we'll talk about later. So all of my comments have been addressed and or delegated to me to work on with the attorney.
Yeah.
You guys did bring up a couple new ones, which is, I think both of those are also just delegation to us to work with the attorney. I just want to check that you guys don't need to come back next meeting and discuss these. You're just concerned about language and lawfulness of these
Right.
terms, and you'll be okay to look at them after Tom and the attorney and I have
Yeah,
worked on them.
In a future draft.
Yes, you'll see them before they, get adopted, but you don't need to spend a while talking about them. We've
Right.
brought them up.
Now,
Okay. I will note this one is good to delegate to attorney and staff. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
okay,
it comes under the delegation of authority.
all right, so moving on, right? All right. Chapter 13. Again, you responded to a couple things. I don't know that we need to do a lot with 13. Let me look at my scribbles. I don't know why, but under 1320.2 violations, under E, I circled, just say portion, just said that is in any way inconsistent, and I just said, is Tom okay with that? So all you have to do is say yes, and we don't need to talk about it any longer.
Where are you?
13.20.2,
Okay, violations.
paragraph E.
E, okay.
E, echo.
I'm okay with it. As in my head, I can picture what it means, but it's, again, this whole ordinance is just to be clear to everybody that reads it, so if there's something that
Somebody.
we're not in agreement with what's that says, and take a look at it, just any condition. So if a permit gets issued, who gets a permit, I may put conditions on it.
Yeah.
Like we put
We
conditions
have
on
conditions on our
everything. Yeah, you
plans,
gotta
right?
do this.
speaking of that, I inadvertently signed two that you need to sign. I struck through my name and initialed it over there.
I can say that I'm not a fan of the language that appears all the way through 1320.2, where it says not inconsistent or in any way non-consistent. That I think there should be.
Do you have a better
Consistency.
attorney ease or not?
Hmm?
Do you have a better attorney ease for that?
Well, I wrote in my note, not in accordance with. Consistency, I don't know, always strikes me as being in the eyes of the beholder. And nothing wrong with your eyes, Tom.
No, and it would ultimately then go to the ZBA and potentially a judge.
Yeah.
So whatever language you think fits better is.
Yeah.
fine.
Well, in either case.
Neither thing, so, right, my determination of consistency or otherwise.
Right.
Could then be appealed,
But you can't.
and then the board would have to
Right.
look at
Right.
the facts and make a determination based on that.
But then when the tribunal is making a review of this, then if the language is consistent or non-consistent.
Yeah.
Then I think, that's going to pose more of a conundrum for the tribunal to say, well, what's consistent? As
So I-
opposed to, actually being in direct violation. I mean. Mark?
Not inconsistent is almost like a double negative.
It says in
Yeah.
any way inconsistent.
Yeah.
That is in any way inconsistent with such permit or approval. So,
So that it's not in accordance.
Not in
We would
accordance with-
substitute what's here.
As opposed to take out the word consistent through this section, because it appears in, A, C,
Yeah, throughout.
B, stuff like that. Maybe you could just run that by, Attorney Sussman,
Yeah, do we wanna just delegate that one to the attorney as well?
Please.
see what he,
You like it.
Yeah, it makes sense to let Bill weigh in.
Yeah.
Bill's the one we defended in court.
Are we okay, since you brought it up and looking
Yes.
at you, but are we okay with that
Please.
being the final look at it again? Or-
Yeah.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
perfect.
because he's gonna, if
Yeah.
it goes before the Superior Court, every time. Trying to argue with it.
We go anywhere.
So what is the suggested wording, Sky, on that?
Instead of not consistent with or in any way inconsistent with, we would change it to not in accordance with or in accordance with. It would basically be the word consistent, except for the word accordance. My list for Phil keeps getting longer, but that's fine, because I like talking to Phil.
I say Tom.
Yeah, Tom would be the one on the chair.
Tom told me.
I'm the witness.
Yeah, Tom's on the electric chair.
Tom gets grilled.
Yeah, I meant Phil.
Great, we can figure out what the better one is there.
Yep.
If he has no issues with either one and he considers them both the same, does the board have a preference?
not consistent. Not in accordance.
You like the new language,
Absolutely.
you would agree with that?
Well, yes.
Yes, because I was just confirming.
I don't have a preference as long as it really is,
Great,
the
okay,
code's also what he thinks along with the attorney. That's, I guess, where
Yep.
I'm at.
I'll defer.
Okay.
I've just seen that word used much more
Yep,
often in
okay.
legislation than.
if they're equal, we'll go
Inconsistent.
with accordance,
Yeah.
since we've got two of you saying
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Unless someone wants to really go for a consistent, but I don't think anyone does.
Yeah. The only thing that's consistent is inconsistency.
Are there any other comments or discussions on Article 13?
No, I think we're done with 13.
Great,
I'll cross it off my list.
perfect.
All right.
Back down to Article 3 then?
Yeah, and I have notes all over Article 3. I think we need to get to some of the other, honestly, I think if we want to get into long extended discussion, which we're all gonna be unhappy with, I don't see us getting to Article 3.
Are you gonna start in the beginning and then go from there? Or we just, like, I'm on Article 3.
Yeah, no,
General.
I am at the beginning, right? The first table, table 3.1, has limited industrial, which I feel is a problem. And I've felt as a problem for years. As Linda put it, she knows my position on it. Bottom line is, that isn't something we should be doing.
Can you tell me what limited industrial means?
Well, it's a new, well, let's ask them, right?
It's an existing zone.
It's existing.
Oh, I
What's-
picked the wrong one then, maybe, I don't know.
All of these are.
These are all existing.
These are all just,
I thought that was a transition.
Nope, that's
So
Article 2.
maybe I should hold my whatever.
These are all existing.
Okay, these are all existing. Maybe I'm okay.
I can go through and just kind of talk about the answers I had to your questions if you guys would like, or you can
Yeah, that's
call them
good.
out to me, whatever.
Well, there were a couple things that you were fixing, right?
There were, I would say, so during the last meeting, there was some concern over 3.10.2, zone descriptions. There was a concern if those descriptions were, not in accordance with what was in the use table, what would rule. I will say Justin at that meeting had suggested that 320 is what rules in this case, that the principal uses and accessory uses are what we go by. I will also say I did double check these. All of these descriptions match up with the allowed uses in the use table. So they're just, kind of a verbiage to let people know what the intention of this zone is, a sum up of what is in the use table. So I think unless anyone has any concerns with that, to me, these are fine.
Nope.
Great, perfect.
For when I still really like.
Perfect, Scott. I'm very glad to hear that. I like them too, honestly.
So
When
what
I
did our
first started here, I
friends say
wanted
about it?
something like this.
Yeah, he said looks great.
Oh, thank you so much. I completely forgot about those.
I don't
That's
know.
okay.
I'm gonna pause really quickly because Andy Munzy,
Well, no, we
who's,
don't need to. He said looks great for one.
I just was gonna say, he
For all three,
provided
right?
written comments. He had no substantive comments. He had one question for me about the historic zone, which I can answer when we get there, but he did provide written comments and he did sign off on all of them.
Yeah.
That was his
But
addition.
he also said, looks great.
He did,
on-
yes.
on one,
That's what I-
three,
He had some
four.
nice
That's
words
what
in
I
there.
said.
It got me
And
through the
it's
day.
So
Um,
I like that.
and I will say, so the biggest questions I think last time were for table 3.2, which is the, lot and building regulations for these zones. And there was a lot of question as to why some changes were made. And I did some sleuthing to figure this out. The minimum lot area per dwelling unit, this was added as a code cleanup because we currently already have verbiage in the code that allows for duplexes on the same space as a single use, right? There's a couple zones where that's the case. So this was a way to clear it up to say this is the dwelling, this is how much space you need per dwelling unit in this zone, rather than saying, hey, in this zone, a duplex and a single use are the same, which is just confusing for people. So this is just a clarification. It's not actually changing any current allowances to my understanding. Minimum lot frontage, there is a change here, and I found Julie's memo from when she looked at this with you guys on May 11th, 2023. The materials that she provided to you did have this red line, and her description from her memo says, the minimum lot frontage for RCU has been reduced from 200 to 100 to match the other commercial districts in this corridor. That would be the same for the minimum side setback. That has been changed for that reason as well. And the MUC1, that was simply a typo. The maximum building height will remain 45 feet as it is now. They pulled from the maximum structure height. And it's a very funny little aside, when I was telling Tom this, I said, oh yeah, they're doing this. And he goes, no, the height there is 60. So the current table is just really hard to read and even the code officer got confused.
Yes.
Don't admit to it.
Did I see something? This is just a law passed in the past legislature that I think for affordable housing, you can get at least an extra 10 feet or something above your maximum.
I'm gonna let Tom address things that were just passed because he attended that session and I haven't had a chance to yet.
Well, pretty much they said, don't read the statute, wait for rulemaking.
So we're in,
Was my take on the
Yeah.
whole thing.
we're aware, we're waiting, we'll change things when we get the final language.
Yeah.
Could also add in something like unless a higher amount is allowed or required by state law or something.
Yes, that's a good point.
It should be done. Well,
Scott, just one note.
Yep.
You probably already changed it, but LI, the minimum lot area, has an extra 0.
You know what, I don't think I have clocked that one, Scott, so thank you.
Unless we're making it, 100,000.
No, it's funny, Tom and I
wanna
found a
move the
similar
comma instead?
typo.
I think we get rid of that.
Yes.
Right, I crossed it in mind.
Yeah.
Okay,
What is the? If we're on table 3.2.
Mhm.
First one, I don't agree, and I don't think that in the RCU, that the minimum lot frontage should be halved. As well as the minimum side setback being halved. My understanding from the 196 corridor plan was the idea was that the RCU was supposed to be preserving the more rural aspect, allowing commercial development, but preserving the more rural aspect of that in order for the gateway for coming into town, to keep it that way. And I think going down to 100 is improper under that comprehensive plan. It also doesn't actually match your zone description, where to accommodate a mix of low intensity office, commercial, residential uses along the rural gateways to the town.
Okay.
So if you are trying to match the RCU to the CC 96, then that's, do we just make the RCU CC 96? It's supposed to be the blend from the rural coming down 196 and then getting a little more developed, but then you get to the CC 196.
I think Scott had a really great point that he brought up last time. The minimum lot frontage in the R3 zone, which the RCU is the gateway between, is 150. So perhaps a better compromise would be closer to 150 or 125 on that. I would say that I think the changes with the RCU are the ones that I could find the least kind of descriptions for, honestly. And I think that if the board would like to discuss those now, that's absolutely understandable and fine. I'm happy to follow your guys' lead.
it's also, yeah, coming down 201 too into town.
Yeah, it's in 2 places.
Oh, for the RCU.
Yep.
for RCU.
RCU, yeah.
Yep.
However, that also goes to my other point of this is code cleanup, not substantive changes other than town center. And the more substantive changes there are, the less it's code cleanup. It's just changing the whole ball of wax. And there are other places. Let me get to the next chapter.
Okay, you're arguing RCU, you're not arguing LI.
That is what the LI actually currently is. That was a typo. I think they just
Yeah, I
are
thought the
changing it
LI
back.
was 10,000.
It was, yeah, that is
No, no,
correct. The
not the
100 is
10,000, the
also
100.
correct, yeah.
All right, so,
It didn't used to be 20?
No.
Oh, so that shouldn't even be there?
The red line is a mistake in the LI instance, I'm pretty sure.
okay. All right, so RCU, what's the board think?
I can make a case that it is not a substantive change. I'm just trying to clean it up to make the change between the R3 and the 190, the CC 196, that it's 100 on one end, it's 150 on the other end, and for some reason it's 200 in the RCU, which isn't
Isn't 196 also R2?
And R2 would be down to,
R2 is even less, so
yeah.
125.
We
So it
aren't
match
to
up.
that chapter
So
yet.
are you saying
It's
No,
125.
we haven't yet.
Are you saying it's inconsistent?
Currently,
At work?
Yeah.
Oh, you like that word, do you?
I don't have the zoning map in front of me.
It
Right.
does border R2 as well, and the current
So are
lot
you-
frontage in R2 is 125.
Are you would just soon see it stay 100?
I'm fine with 125. I'm okay with 100.
I'm
I
fine with
think
any of it,
it's-
but I think I do like his point. Consistency would make more sense. I mean, it shouldn't just be for one road that's coming into town.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Ron, what do you
guys
think?
Kind of like it.
So what number are we on, guys? 125?
Yeah.
All right,
So both, coming in RCUs in both directions are from R3 zones.
Mhm.
And then after that,
Yes.
you get a variation of what's next.
Yeah.
I don't know which way you're coming.
all right. So to be consistent, 125 does that?
That's between 150 and 100.
Well,
It
some of,
does that
some of ones,
unless-
some of the 196 are, where you come along the RCU also goes by the, R2B. I'm reading this correctly.
Which is currently 125.
I think, Larry, let's go with 125.
I like that.
That's what I'm hearing.
I don't agree.
Okay,
I said, I'm not in favor of substantive changes. And I think that's substantive.
you have another kick at the cat. You'll have another kick at the cat or two. All right,
Oh, yeah.
so do we,
Finished Article
all right,
3?
the chapter that I
Oh,
screwed up with, are we good with
thanks,
3?
Larry.
Which
All right.
does side on side setback, I'm sorry.
Oh, we didn't do side setbacks. Thank you, Tom.
With the what one?
So I'll come back to the consistency. What is consistent with the other side?
Our R3 is 35.
Okay. So it looks like we bounced all around between,
Yeah, what's the proposal right now? 15 or 6 or,
It's
Yeah.
15.6 is a footnote.
There
Sorry,
is a-
it's formatted weird.
okay, so 15?
Yeah.
Well, with the footnote applies to if it abuts an R zone, then it
Mm.
remains at 30.
Yes. Yep. That is a good one. Thank you, Tom.
so
it's-
if you just left it third, well, what is it today? Is it
It's 30.
It's 30.
30?
Alright, so why the change?
I think this is another one with consistency. If we're looking at other LI, CC 196, BP2, BP, they're all 15. It's the highest one on that table, and R3 is currently 35, and then R2 is 15, and R2B is 15. I'd say maybe it's a little less strong of an argument on the frontage one, so but the 6 is meant to kind of protect that residential buffer. You could also go up to 20 or 25 if you didn't feel comfortable going as low as 15. Or stay at 30.
What makes it most consistent?
As a transitional zone?
Yeah.
So when one way we're going R3, RCU, and then CC 196 and BP2 it hits into. The 196 is all over the place.
No, I know,
I
that's
mean,
part
if
of
you
the
look at
problem.
that, yeah, okay, so maybe the other direction, it goes R3, RCU, LICC. So the transition after RCU is LICC.
I think in that case it's 25, which would be halfway between 35 and 15, right?
LI is 15 and CC is 15, there's a footnote. 2 footnotes. Just has to do with parking and actually LI does away with maximum setback. The footnotes in the wrong place. So 15 and 15. So we'll go on 35, transition zone, 15 and 15.
I'm good with it with the footnote. I mean, what it does is it continues to have the same buffer that it currently does with.
Which was the concern.
With
Yeah,
residential.
And that probably addresses the 196 side because there are.
It gives the buffer
There's a
to
couple spots, yeah.
residential with the.
Well, they all have external buffers, but where it would matter, I suppose, along the road, one couple spots.
I
might hit it.
guess, all right, I'm okay with leaving it.
30.
No,
Oh,
leaving
at
it.
15.
15.
Leaving it, I'm sorry, I'm
So
saying
we're changing.
it's changing to 15 and 6.
Leave it as written.
With
the
the,
footnote that if it's
and
a
6 is the
our
footnote
zone,
that if it's our
6 is
zone,
the-
it's 30 feet,
Okay.
which still gives the buffer protection.
Yeah, I mean, I just, give me a scenario where that, if we didn't keep that footnote, give me a scenario of how that could be problematic.
Well, it's,
I mean, just real life,
I don't,
like somebody's building somewhere in a
We try to-
residential area and.
yeah, we try to protect the residential zones as much as we can. We have instances where there's extra buffering between them, so this is just another, hey.
If that dropped down to 15, then you're gonna be that much closer.
Oh, yeah,
to
but we
the-
won't, we wouldn't be
Well-
doing that. The
but we
footnote
won't
is
be,
there.
and that's
Yeah,
why the footnote-
yes,
Right.
yes.
the footnote gives that protection.
Yeah.
But if you're in the middle of like the RCU and you have RCU on all sides, maybe you don't need to do it as much.
Right. You
That's-
still have 15 and 15, which is 30
Right,
between
so I'm,
instead.
I'm good with that, cause I would be concerned with the residential.
You and I are about 15 feet apart, Carrie, as we sit here, judging,
Okay,
a rough judge.
guys,
That's a long way, Larry, I used to long jump, there's no way I long jumped all the way.
Okay, great. That was Article 3.
I jumped 17.
so can we say we can check off Article 3, people?
And I didn't even
With disagreement.
have anything to remand to the attorney. Great.
Okay. Article 3.
Would you like me to do the same thing for Article 4 as I did for Article 3? Kind of discuss my answers, or do you guys want to just talk about them?
Like your answers.
Yeah, Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that you guys have the same questions about this one as you did Article, Table 3.2, you know, just why have there been changes made here, and as again, I did some sleuthing. And from what I can find, so the biggest changes here are the minimum lot area has been reduced in the R1, R2, and R2B zones. Technically, it has been reduced in R3, but this is a kind of like a rounding instance. We wanted to put everything in the same units, and 3 acres, if you transfer it, is 65, 340. We brought it down to 65, just so it's clear. Everyone who's meeting the 3 acres will be just a little bit over, and it doesn't really substantively change anything there. R1,
1.5.
thank you, yes. Yep, yeah, wow. Am I lying to people? Hold on.
That's good.
So R1, R2, and R2B have been brought down 10,000 feet, square feet on all of them. My guess is this is done is because there is a lot of non-conforming lots in these zones. The entirety of the Ivanhoe neighborhood is non-conforming.
90 plus lots.
Yeah, all of those lots are non-conforming and all of Topsham Heights is non-conforming. My guess about this, because it wasn't explicitly brought up in Julie's memo, is this is an attempt to give back property rights to people who bought property that was legally conforming when it was built, and then at some point the zoning code was changed, and well, you know, people like these neighborhoods, they're in our comp plan, people bring them up, why are they non-conforming this way? So that's how I think this is a zoning code cleanup issue. It's not trying to make a substantive change, it's just trying to give people the rights that, you know, they deserve.
There's an awful lot of R2 that is not Ivanhoe. And why are we concerned with giving back? Or why do they need this property right? To say, oh, now my lot is conforming, it doesn't change their lot one whit. And and here again, I look at this as being a major substantive change with regard to R1, R2, and R3. I'm R2B, but not the R3, because, well, I mean, 1 acre is 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. And so you've now said in R2, you can basically have less than a half acre lot. And you've dropped down the frontage down to 100 feet in the R2, 70, and R1, of course, is a quarter acre lot. And I think this is, like I said, again, major substantive change. I'm not in favor of substantive changes in the recode. Other than, I know we have substantive changes with the town center, but that was part of the whole thing. I don't recall anything, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not recall anything in any of the comprehensive plans, including the most recent, that said, oh, we need to encourage more development and tighter development in these zones in order to drop down the lot area and the frontage. The other note that I had too is that in the old, or the current ordinance, there is the provision regarding if something is served by water and sewer, then it changes the number of dwelling units per lot. And if it's not, then the amount of area goes up. I didn't see anything in here that addressed the dichotomy between what's served by water and sewer and what is not served by water and sewer. And we already know that anything on the other side of 295
Isn't served by,
doesn't,
at least sewer.
does not served by sewer. And are we ever going to see that? Who knows? And there are lots of parts of R2 that will never see water and sewer because of the topography.
Okay, all right, so you think this is too substantive?
Yes.
I'm with Larry.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Scott?
One of the R1, it may be a moot point anyway.
Yes, that's true.
Legislation is gonna bring it down to 5.
Well, that was my next question,
Yeah.
the new laws, what does that mean?
I
To
think
some
it'll
of
be
this.
6,
Yeah,
5
that's
or
why-
6.
Any growth areas, so it was, gotta wait for the rule. I've read it a couple times, but it almost implied the way I read it, and I even hate to say it, but you know, even some sort of sewer and water.
Yeah.
If they were private, not that that could happen, but here it would apply to that too.
So I know we referred to Julie's memo. What is, I'm not sure I understand what the driving force is behind.
Yeah, one of them may be, and what Larry was hitting on, the part that allows the reduction. It's all tied to 2 families, so take R1,
It's
you
tied
have
to
a
2
minimum lot
families?
size of 20,000 for one. You can do a 2-family if you have sewer and water.
So is that back to the law?
No, this is what's in our current ordinance.
Okay.
And then in the R2,
So when you say 2 families, you're talking a duplex, basically.
multifamily is different. In our current R2.
All right, so
It's all, the current one is kind of all over the place.
I misunderstood your comment. What was the comment about 2 families?
There's a density reduction based on sewer and water for 2-family.
So that might need to be a
Okay.
footnote here, or a dwelling unit, like a dwelling unit reduction with a footnote.
Yeah,
if we're
my
gonna
guess
keep it
is this
to
was
the
just to
current
make
code.
it uniform because you have a different number for single family per unit versus 2-family per unit versus multifamily currently in our ordinance.
So
In some aspects, it's you get more units doing 2-family development than you would a multifamily.
What's the difference?
Multifamily is 3+ in the same building.
Okay.
Depending on who you talk to, but anyway. Assessors have it, anyway, no.
Yeah.
I guess I would ask is maybe you and planning staff go kind of revisit this whole thing and tell us what you recommend.
I can do that if you'd like to. I can also tell you that, you know, I'd say that I've given you my thoughts on this tonight. I've told you what I think the reasoning for this was, and I think that,
And I'm not ready to check this off.
okay,
I'll have to think about your thoughts some more, and
Okay.
without some help, I'm not sure when I'll be ready to check it off. That's okay.
But when, so what was this law, the one you're saying that is coming into effect? That would hit
this is
R1 basically?
this spring. that it passed, right? Early,
Yeah, I
early
think
summer, late spring.
our drop date is, I think, July of 2027. We didn't even get that far to look at it. We can put it in here. We'll probably get direction from, well, we gotta wait for the rules to come out.
So is that one that doesn't come into effect until 90 days after the legislature adjourns?
It was signed, but the effective date is, they had to allow towns to get it, time to get it in their ordinances.
Yeah.
So I think July of 27,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear the 27th.
Yeah, no, not that
Wait a
27th.
second, it could be July.
Yeah, we have some,
And what did the law say?
I believe in growth areas, it was specific to growth areas.
It
and
was.
You couldn't have a zoning, couldn't require over 5,000 square feet per lot. And on that lot, you could actually, you had to allow up to 4 buildings.
4 units.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if that is going into effect, even if it.
It'll
takes
adjust
until-
this, it'll have to,
Right, so, I mean,
but that'll only be
of
in
the R1.
the areas defined, but like, and that was water and sewer area.
Water sewer areas, I think.
Right, but all of R1 has that.
Yes, and some of our two.
So that would be at least a point of at least moving to 10,000.
Yeah, but that'll be a, we have to do it versus. let's
Right,
do
which
this one.
is.
Yep.
When you talked about that going there.
Yeah.
R1 is kind of a given anyway. Right, so. All right,
And
Before we
just,
leave this
not
chapter.
Not belabor R1, but R1 is talked about in the comp plan as a growth area.
yeah,
So that
Well, yeah.
doesn't, rather than R2.
Correct.
Right, so.
Yeah.
It is consistent with the comp plan to move in that direction higher density.
For R1, right, but R2 is not looked at. It's growth area.
so the only other thing I was gonna bring up in this chapter is that you did get John Hodges' input.
Yep.
Everybody should have seen the memo from him, but he seemed to
Yep.
like what we have in here, so if John Hodge likes it, I like it. Right,
Perfect.
so
So he likes the proposal.
that's what is, can you send it?
Did a couple.
Yes,
I have it in here
changes
in
to
this
talk
pile
about.
somewhere.
I think I forgot to print that one myself.
So,
That's okay.
I had John Hodge look at 460, the affordable housing density. He liked it. He had a few recommendations for the language around people affording it. And since the attorney has already looked at this a couple times, I sent his language to the attorney. The attorney looked at it, tweaked it a little bit more. I would say we're just working on getting that to a place with him. So now that we've moved on from 4.2, if you guys are okay to just kind of, give me affordable housing to check, to figure out John's comments with the attorney and get to a place with the attorney,
Yeah,
I'm happy to do that.
that's fine. John,
I still have one more, I have a
Yep.
question.
sorry.
And back to the rural open space. What did we determine about, there was the issue about the that last bullet under rural open space that was struck out whereby.
Oh, we had decided that we were gonna have the open space development, go back to how it is now, and that the planning department would like to substantively change that section at some point in the next couple of years and come to you guys and do that in the proper, situation that we're bringing you.
Not as part of this.
Yeah, not as part of the recode, because it would be a pretty substantive change, and we don't have the time to do it right now, but we'd like to have the time to do it properly
But
later.
where does it reside when this gets passed?
The open space development?
Yeah, does
Um,
it disappear?
No, I think it'll stay where it is, but anything that's changed from the current ordinance will revert back to what it is now. In our current, sorry, I think I just said nonsense. It will
Right.
stay where it is in Article 4.
That's only
Anything-
allowed for me.
I know, I'm sorry, guys. It'll stay where it is in Article 4.
So the text that's here will remain.
The text that's here that will remain, and it might change a little bit to go back to what is currently in our ordinance. There was a
Okay.
few changes that had, were difficult for, each side was upset with them, and I said, let's not do this right now, let's
Okay.
do it in the future. And so I think if there's some redlining here, that will go away, and it will just look exactly like what it looks like now.
Right, so I guess I would.
This will remain as currently written.
Yes.
Currently written.
Which is not the
But will
cost
be
out
added in here.
language.
Which is not what
It
you're
will
saying here.
currently written as in what's in our published zoning code that rules right now, not what is in this draft, because the draft had some minor changes to it that I don't recommend trying to do right now.
Okay,
All right, Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, work through the attorney, whatever, but you can take the John Hodge stuff. And I can look for that later. Send them what John Hodge sent as well. So,
Did people want to know what he said? 'Cause I
oh,
have the
you found
copy.
it. Why don't you
Perfect,
just
thank
give it
you.
to them?
Yeah, I don't need any more, but basically it's just saying, instead of, just the cost of the rent or just the cost of the house, you're adding in utilities, you're adding in taxes, you're adding insurance.
Right.
And I will say the attorney suggested tweaking that to say without spending more than 30% of the household's monthly income on housing
Yes.
costs, which John got back to me and said, as long as housing costs is defined. So now I'm gonna go back to the attorney and say, should we define housing costs? And so this is why I'm saying, can I work on it with the attorney?
Please. All right,
Housing
so
costs before the close of business?
I keep trying to move on you.
I
you don't
know, I'm
want me to
sorry, I keep
move.
bringing
That's
it
okay,
back.
right? So
I'm done.
at least my perspective on this chapter is we're good with the chapter. We need to reconcile our differences on R2, R2B, R31 in the table before we check it off. All right,
In section 440, did
What's recording? Open space?
you say open space?
It's not getting looked at right now.
Right, okay.
I don't have
Not
time,
for purposes of RICO?
not for purposes of RICO.
All right, then I'll just, can I throw out in table 4.3, we don't have an R2B section in there. I don't know if we want one, but that'll be consistent. with-
Where's table?
Uh, Yeah,
Um,
we don't currently either, just so you know.
is there anything in R2B that could ever become an open space to them?
No,
I don't think
I'm
they're
like,
big enough.
I don't think there's anything big enough, Tom, actually.
okay,
I think it's currently being developed, huh? Eagle River?
all right.
No,
so-
that's
no.
R2.
no, it,
I thought Eagle
That's
River.
that's the right answer.
R2.
It's
R2B
so-
is tiny. It's
It's
just
tiny.
along
Yeah,
196.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
Also
that's the
lots.
point. I don't think there's anything big enough there.
I-
Because if you remember, I suggested that the entirety of it was one large lot.
Okay, we can leave it out then.
So we're good?
I need my reading glasses to see how big they are. So
Did you find it? It wasn't on,
they're not big.
yeah. Where?
Those are the R2 lots. The light-
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're tiny.
I think
Okay,
it's the front along
Yeah.
Ivanhoe, actually, the bit of 196 in front of Ivanhoe is R2B.
all right, 5.
I think there's only 2 concerns related to the historic district. And I will have them look at this. Though I will say Andy is a member of the historic district and did not raise any flags, so that makes me feel better about things. And I believe, so you guys asked a question about the language. I will also just repeat this, it's at the front of the ordinance, but it's easy to miss it. The green language is in, the green text is in there to say that before this goes, I need to double check that that language is consistent with whatever the town is using for that. It's kind of placeholder language saying a historic resource survey or, you know, something. I'll need to check that before it goes to make sure it's referring to the right one. We may have it be broad enough that it's future proofing if we have a new one, or it may need to refer to the 2010 architectural survey.
So
Green
that's-
is meant for double checking.
That's the town historic survey stuff,
Yes.
okay.
And then we had a lot of discussion about the substantial improvement and market value versus assessed value. I can't find substantial improvement anywhere in the current historic district overlay zone language. So in that case, you know, I don't know what it's referring to. In that case, we'd probably be best to leave it as it is currently in our code in case it's a reference to something that I, not as like a, you know, certified historic preservation person, don't understand. I would suggest we probably just, I think I changed it because Justin, the assessor, had suggested not having it as market, because market is so, you know, the town might be on the hook, or we might be asking someone to pay for something. But since we don't really know what it's meant to be or where it's from, I would default to keeping as is at market.
But in general, because I had made a note way back when, just asking what's changed. The historic committee has reviewed this. and
They will review this, so I will
works
say
for
that
them.
Andy has looked at it and had no comments, and he is on that committee, but I will send it out to them and ask them. to
Where we have
review.
the maps and the lots and whatever, that's not gonna surprise any people.
No, it shouldn't. This should be mostly all
They
the
should already
same.
know that
Yes.
they're part of this.
Yes, yep. There's very little that I believe has changed in here, but it is a good point. I thought I had sent it out to them last week, but in my flurry of sending emails, I think I missed it, so they will get it.
And the vernal pool overlay zone is consistent with,
Since Mark is
Whatever
here,
we
though,
are.
we do have to note that what Andy said does not constitute the opinion of the historic commission.
Thank you, yes.
So the historic commission should
understand.
review it.
Mhm.
None, and she said they would,
Yes.
so that's good. Vernal pool, are we still a ZAMP or whatever it is?
Mhm.
Right, and how does this
It
fit
hasn't,
with that?
it hasn't changed at all. This is just
Okay,
copy
good.
pasted.
Good, all right. Mobile home overlay, again, that hasn't changed.
There have been a few changes, but it's to comply with state law. And those are from the attorney, specifically his review last year. He did catch a couple things that needed to be changed to be compliant with state law.
For which part?
The mobile home
The mobile
overlay,
home,
it's
oh,
just had
yeah.
a few little changes to make us
For the-
compliant with state law.
Correct.
Yep.
All right,
Article
So-
11, you guys had no
so
comments
Article
last
5,
time.
we can check off, everybody agree?
Was there anything I needed to do in Article 5? Check with the historic
Just
district.
for-
Yep,
Yeah.
okay, great, thank
Historical
you.
and Greek text.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
The one that says it's available for inspection, but you don't know what it is or where it is.
okay, then Article 11. Isn't that the
It's floodplain and it hasn't
floodplain
changed
and
at
no
all.
changes, so we can check it off? Okay. We got through a lot.
Wow.
Great, so it sounds like to me the only one that you guys need to come back to is Article 3, and you would like planning to write up our professional opinion on the minimum lot sizes, proposed changes.
Is that 3 or 4?
Oh, 4, I'm
4.
sorry, thank you, Dawn, apparently I'm not.
It's okay, so I
We can
I
go back
checked
to
off-
Article 3, 'cause I didn't like that.
I
Got
checked
it,
off
Larry.
Article 1, no, we're not, Larry. 1, 13, 3, 5, and 11 are in your hands.
Yep.
for
You'll see them
attorney
again for the
discussions
final,
and
yeah, okay, great.
Historic committees and all that good stuff. We'll just revisit Article 4. Everybody
And
everybody agree with that?
Excellent.
we could probably do that at the beginning of the next one before we do non-conformities and
That'd be
conditional
good.
uses, I think we can fit that
Yeah,
in.
good.
So, no wrench, but we do have, we got the shoreline back from the consultant and
Yes, Eric.
DEP's preliminary, just did a preliminary approval on it. We could look at that anytime. Say it's pretty boilerplate, but it's gonna be in here, so at some point we'll have to,
Mhm. Yeah, this was just us changing to be compliant with state
be
statute.
compliant with the current statute.
Okay, so our schedule, we can pick up 4 with, on September 11th. We have Articles 12 and 14. And if you think we have time, maybe bring that
What do
in.
you wanna do?
I think it would be, I think 4, I'll bring you my comments and you guys will, read them
Okay.
beforehand and you'll be ready to make your determination at
So
that point, is
we'll
my
do 4
understanding.
And then shoreland,
Yeah,
Maybe we'll wait on the shoreline because,
what are we gonna
I
do,
think Mark
mapping?
asked and the consultant's gonna do a presentation. for us.
Yeah,
all right. so
We'll wait on that
Wait
one.
on it, okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
can update the schedule again. That's why it says proposed, because I know it'll change every time.
anyone, anything,
Do we have anything on the 28th?
Yes, you've got an overnight food truck parking application. That's the only thing for the 20th.
About a meal. I guarantee I will not be here on the 28th.
We're gonna close the door.
well, no, we
Sunday.
don't trust that.
Well, you said you weren't gonna be here tonight.
Oh,
yeah, that's right, Kate.
I thought,
So, wait, so before we, an overnight food truck.
Yep.
Have we ever done one of those?
Well, it'll be fresh.
Are you gonna teach us how to do it?
Josh has got it.
No, I'll just tell you guys all about it.
Alright.
There's a provision that if it stays overnight, it has to go to the planning board.
Seriously.
Hmm.
I thought we gave away all that stuff to the fair committee and stuff, or no, to the select board.
This one
Give him this
persisted.
one.
Remember where the fair committee wanted us to do it, and it went to the select board to approve all the permits for overnight?
Well, overnight campers didn't get real
I didn't
popular.
remember overnight, all right, Anything else, Josh?
If you haven't signed the plans for Highland Green yet, please do, they're right over there on the table.
Yeah, there's 3 sets, so please do. Thank everyone for being
Scott, I
here.
thought I was gonna be out of state today, in Rhode Island. So I'm gonna be